Hey guys, Level Cap and Luton here. Today we're going to be talking about the Battlefield 4 beta. We've had 2 weeks to play this game on Siege of Shanghai. We've got a lot of class changes. We've got new game modes to talk about, performance issues. And what I wanted to start off here is class balance. We've seen a lot of new gadgets added to different classes. Other classes have been tweaked. I think it's become a much better balance between, say, bringing the support class up, bringing the assault class down a bit. Luton, what's your thoughts on general class balance?
I think they've really done well with the class balance. I do have some mild concerns, but overall, like you say, it is interesting to see what they've done with them. I still think that Engineer is one of the primary... I saw Engineer played probably more than anything else, and it seems to be such a strong role to play. It's always a strong role in Battlefield because obviously you have all the vehicles. I am pleased that they brought the Assault down a little bit because Assault was starting to become such a sort of dominating class, and I often think as well, like, it didn't give enough people a push to sort of try and, expand on what they can do with the game, and the fact that they kind of push people to try and do different things now I think will be quite helpful. The support class, I am interested to see how the support class fares when they have a bit more equipment and so on, because I felt like it was slightly more limited compared to the other classes so far. And the Type 88, great gun, but the U100 was generally, I felt, shocking. But again, that's a weapon balance thing. But I think it'll be interesting to see how the support fares when we bring other equipment into the mix.
Yeah, I feel like the support class is one of the few classes that we really aren't getting a full glimpse of just yet, because my experience with the remote mortar showed that it's going to be a serious gadget. Like, I think it's going to be a game-changing gadget. And the ability just to take recon off of the top of buildings and make rooftop camping far less viable seems like something that would really change up the whole flow of the game, because rooftop camping in this beta was just rampant. Every single game I played in Conquest or Obliteration, there's people on top of the roofs, and it was difficult to take them off. Now, the support did get the XM25. What do you think about that one?
The XM25 is really great. It's not just great for clearing off rooftops, but also people behind cover. And there was many times where people were jumping in behind sort of concrete blocks or whatever. And if you can just change out and fire in on there, it stops those guys from hiding, getting the drop on you or whatever. It's a really versatile tool. The only thing I will say is I did find towards the end of the beta that people were starting to use it as almost a primary weapon. They're running around in the open and just firing straight in on people. And I think it's great for kind of clusters of people. If you have sort of 3, 4, 5 guys, maybe on a domination cap or a conquest cap base, and they're trying to sort of stay together to get that fast cap, people just firing in the XM25 and just wipe them out. And the airburst feature, that's so interesting just to have that sort of mechanic there, something we haven't seen before. And I think it's going to be, going into the game, I think people are going to find new ways to use that, and it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of appeals into the game as we go along,
Yeah, it's a nice rewarding gun too. It's one of those things where when you line it up right and then you aim above the concrete block that the guy's prone behind and you fire and you get the hit markers, it's a really nice feeling to see a weapon working the way it's supposed to. This really technologically advanced piece of equipment actually functioning realistically in game, which is very cool. One thing that, I wasn't thinking about talking about, but it just occurred to me was during the beta, I was having a lot of ammunition issues, and it's not so much that support wasn't dropping ammo box, it's that we rarely progressed our field upgrades to the point where we had enough extra ammo, or it would last very momentarily. What are your thoughts on the field upgrade progression, and were you having trouble keeping it maxed out at points, or getting any field upgrades for that matter?
Well, as people know, I play the objective pretty hard, and the guys that I tend to play with also do so. So for me, I actually found we were staying on top of it all the time. I was kind of worried because I felt like I didn't know how fast it was going to upgrade as we went through. And even though I'd had a bit of experience before the beta of playing the game, we didn't really get a chance because I wasn't playing with people that I play with, so I didn't really sort of get a full taste of that. But actually, when we got into the game and I was working with the people that I play with, I actually found it was really easy to upgrade the field upgrades. I found that we were staying usually at least 50%. Sometimes we were maxing out almost in the first sort of, 5 minutes of the game, and then we would just stay on that for the whole round. I think it depends as well just how your team is working in the game. If you're sort of ground pounding on the ground, always front line, that's a high risk situation, so you're going to have more people taken out. But if your team is maybe staying together as sort of like 2s and 3s, and then maybe somebody else positioned in a different place on the map, you're always going to keep one person there. So I think it just depends on people's play styles. But for me, I was actually just pleased because I found it was quite easy to upgrade, and we were staying on top all the time. As for keeping the ammo though, I do find the same thing though, that, yeah, if you don't have that upgrade, it does make a big difference. Siege of Shanghai is such an open, large map, and there's so many different areas that you would often find you sort of run out of ammo and so on before you can kind of encounter other people, you know?
You bring up an interesting point when you're talking about the high risk of ground pounding, and that's something that I always felt was a really important part of any team, is having those aggressive players in the front lines who are going to be taking most of the casualties, but they're also going to be pushing that front line. They're going to be taking out the armor. They're going to be the infantry getting killed by tanks, but also killing the tanks. And for those players there, or for squads that are doing that on the front lines, I feel that they don't get rewarded very well because they'll wipe more frequently. They won't get their upgrades. And then I found when I was playing in a squad where maybe one of us was in a helicopter the whole round, we never wiped. And so you got one guy in the heli and then other guys on the ground. So you get this sort of divergence, this split of the squad, which I would argue is perhaps not the best way to break up a squad, or at least if you think about the way a squad behaves naturally, you think of them sticking together for the most part, working together, helping each other out, and you could say ground support versus air support and that sort of thing. But I feel like there's some things that you can do to sort of take advantage of the squad wiping mechanics, like just having a guy play recon on a building really far away, not helping out particularly a lot, but still keeping the perks up. And so I say personally that I would like to see some sort of different mechanic in there that does reward the high-risk players versus the campy players, or the players playing a little bit safer in the backfield.
Yeah, a great example of this was mentioned on my channel the other day, where me and one of the other guys who were playing in the helicopter, the attack heli, we stayed up for the entire round. We both finished with like a ridiculous KD, and yet my guys on the ground really struggled. There was they even had a clan in there. They just couldn't make any headway, and I think that shows that even though you can have dominating air support, it really matters on the ground. And I think that, like you say, there's a bit of tweaking to be done there, because some of the guys on the ground just really struggling to push forward. On the other hand, I think it's kind of like that Battlefield thing always, where you just sometimes have teams that don't make any effort to push forward whatsoever. And I think the different game modes, moving perhaps into that now as well, the game modes play out very differently, and I think that, again, it's such a tough balance to strike when you're sort of looking at classes, how they perform, when you have very different game modes coming in, and we haven't really seen anything of Rush yet either. So very, very interesting to sort of see how these things are going to play out when we go into the different game modes. But how did you find, for example, Obliteration on Siege of Shanghai?
My initial experience with Obliteration was a little bit negative because nobody knew what the heck they were doing at first, and the bomb often ended up in the hands of somebody who was just completely clueless. Or I watched some teammates run to our own bomb points, and we're trying to figure out how to arm our own bomb points, and then the enemy team comes in, kills them, takes the bomb, arms the bomb point, and destroys it. And I was just like pulling my hair out, like, this one guy lost the game for us because he took the bomb to the wrong place. And so the idea of giving all the power in the world to one player on your team just scares the crap out of me for a public game. Now, later on in Obliteration, I was playing with friends, we were working together with the squad, and we had some really intense, entertaining chase moments that I enjoyed a lot. It is good for creating those chase scenes, and for that, I respect the game mode, but in terms of overall strategy and the way it plays out and how strategic the whole game mode can be, I think it's probably going to be one of the lesser game modes in that sense. I think it's just more of a run and gun, crazy action game mode, and it does that, but it's just not that. It's hard to anticipate your enemy's actions, and sometimes if they get ahead of you, you may as well just give up, because there's no way you can catch them in time, so you may as well just get ready for the next bomb spawn.
I think it's the kind of game mode that will work a lot better on smaller maps than the larger maps, because if you have a smaller player count, those players are going to be more responsible for what's happening to that bomb and the device as it moves around the map. But I found that when I actually did some spectating on Obliteration rounds, and I actually noticed that, again, even though you could have a really coherent squad and they were working very well as a team, just the fact that the rest of the team didn't really seem to know what they were doing or moving around had such a massive, massive impact on this game mode, way more than with something like Conquest, for example. And it reminded me so much of like Capture the Flag. You know, you could on Capture the Flag have a really elite team of like four guys, whatever, and and they can be playing the objectives so hard. But if the rest of the team are not supporting them in any capacity, it's going to be almost impossible, because they try to get that flag, they just get taken down, they just can't make any headway. And that's how I find it was with Obliteration. Similarly, you would end up with these ridiculous situations where the bomb gets dropped in sort of no man's land, right out in the open, and then from that point on it's like, well, either that or just even out in the street. And I was watching several times the bomb would get dropped out in the middle of the road, no cover around, and guys would start to go running for it, and immediately there's like bipod LMGs, recons on it, and as soon as anybody goes near it, it's like dead, 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 dead. And it was like, it was lasting like sort of 15 minutes where nobody could even pick up the bomb because everyone's just wiping each other out. And again, this comes back to, we don't have all the equipment yet, okay? So remember, we don't necessarily have smoke grenades and all these kind of things. If the bomb gets dropped out in the open, the first thing you're going to want to do, drop a ton of smoke on that so that some guy can go running. Maybe he won't survive, but at least he'll have a better chance. And
now, did you see any of the exploits in the game mode?
What, for Obliteration? I didn't see any. No, I didn't see any exploits. Tell me.
Okay. So there's a few easy ones and obvious ones. One is having 3 guys on one team put C4 on each of your objectives. So if you ever see the bomb carrier, which you have vision on the whole time, get next to your bomb, you just detonate and kill them. Which is funny. It's not a surefire thing because somebody can always pick it up and then rearm. But then there's a few other ones where if you put C4 on the bottom of a jet ski, and I think this was on Thready's video, they get the bomb carrier onto the jet ski all the way on their side of the map. They just get them all the way back there. It's very hard for the enemy team to even get over there. It might be out of bounds. They detonate it, and he flies directly over a bomb point all the way on the other side of the map. And so you get the bomb carrier from one side of the map to the other with literally no way of stopping him. And so I just see like that compounding exponentially for every new map and every new thing we find as some way to exploit this game mode and just make it completely ridiculous and non-strategic.
I think C4 on flags and so on, I think people always need to remember this, is that when people start C4ing things, usually that player is going to C4 it again. So you just need to be aware of the fact that they're using C4 in there. This would always happen on close quarters, on the flags, etc. If you get C4'd one time, okay, next time you go there, just drop a grenade in, sets it all off, you're good to go. So it's just one of those sort of learning things there. But I think we had less problems with some of the other game modes. For example, Conquest, this was one of the ones that I found just played out the best overall. I had the best gameplay on there, the best team play, and the best sort of moments, the best battlefield moments, the most exciting situations that we had. What was your best moment for Conquest in this, you think?
Definitely flying helicopters near the top of the skyscraper. Just getting it on that perfect level where you're shooting into these like high-class diners and or bars and stuff like that, and guys try and go prone behind the bar, and you're just splash damaging the heck out of them. Watching the elevator doors open and your helicopter just fires an entire volley of rockets into the elevator bay, and you're just like piling up the kills. It's just this scene that feels like it's out of True Lies or something like that, where you know, how many times do you get to see a modern attack helicopter fire rockets and machine guns into a skyscraper? It's just kind of an amazing looking spectacle, and it's a ton of fun to play too. In terms of the actual Conquest game mode, though, it is just so well balanced. I think this map, it was a great map to feature Conquest mode in. You've got a great mixture of air warfare that isn't too overbearing, because you can take out helicopters very easily if you need to. You got some good armor ground combat, and you also have some great opportunities for sniping and engineers and all this stuff. It's all just mixed into one really gorgeous looking map, at least for the first half of it anyway.
It was interesting how Levolution had such a role to play in this map as well, because it really did change things in terms of the overall gameplay. It wasn't just like one event that would happen, but it would actually have a continuing effect through the rest of the round. The fact that it created so much dust and smoke around the whole map, that changed the entire gameplay dynamic of sort of what you could see, what you were able to do. I mean, and even to the point of you could actually hide from enemies if you were aircraft. You go down through this stuff and you're much harder to see than earlier on in the game. Coming back to the aircraft though, some of the heli moments that you would have were just so amazing in that game, where you're chasing a transport heli and you start shooting into him, then the power of the momentum of the weapon sort of pushes him over the side of the building, and then that goes down to the guys on the ground. They're running along, and all of a sudden like a fireball of a helicopter will just land right in front of them, and you just see these things like screeing down the side of a building. Absolutely amazing. So many fantastic crashes moments, you know. But I think as well, from the layout of the map, like you say, it just played so well. One thing that was fantastic was the jet skis and the flanking you could do with those. That that can totally turn a game around. You know, I don't think we really had. I think there was one time where we ended up in a spawn trap situation. Glad to say it was our team doing that, but I don't really approve of it. But nonetheless, just really good with the jet skis, because that can break you out of that situation so well. You just take a fast flank straight to A or E, and you can just break out of that immediately. So it was really good to see that balance, because I think that's often what you really want on a conquest map, the fact that you can kind of turn it around and you don't end up sort of clustered on one place for too long.
Yeah, and in addition to that idea there, I think a really, really big thing that not a lot of people are going to notice, especially if you're not pilots, is that you have automated sentry turrets in each capture zone of each base. And if you fly your helicopter too close to the enemy's base, you are going to start getting pelted. So it prevents that sort of aerial spawn camping as well.
Yeah, those were actually really annoying. You kind of drifting over there and you forget that they're there and they just sort of wipe you out. But I think as well the leveled effect of gameplay. So you could go right down into B, right down into the sort of underground section of the mall there, and you have that great kind of combat happening there, and then it takes you back up above ground. You've got all that intense tank gameplay going on, so you'd have a full tank convoy of maybe 3 tanks coming up against another across the bridge, plus, you know, engineer guys trying to take them out, and you have that really intense. You're up in the sky, you have the attack helicopters, the transports, they're coming down into the streets, or they're dropping behind buildings to do sort of pop-up attacks so they don't get locked. You have all the guys on the rooftops locking the vehicles, firing down, sniping. There's so many elements going on there, and it just felt like such an intense patchwork of gameplay happening. It was just a really fantastic experience.
Yep, I think DICE made the right choice just because of its balance. You know, I think they could see right off the bat that it was just such a well-balanced conquest map. Now, why don't we talk about some of the performance issues just briefly here, because I know a lot of people were having computer-related issues, crashing, frame rate issues. There's definitely a lot of bugs in the beta, and you can't really fault it because it's a beta. You know, bugs are in betas by definition, and that's just part of the game there. As far as the performance goes, I think it was pretty good for a beta. I know there's some improvements coming along. There's definitely crashes and stuff. I noticed some people making definitive judgments about the game, not realizing that their performance or their gameplay was being affected by bugs. A common one that I don't think a lot of people knew about was a one-shot kill bug that just seemed to happen randomly. It might have been related to headshots, but you could one-shot somebody with a relatively weak projectile, and it would just kill them instantly. And so it made the 870 shotgun extremely good. It made pistols just ridiculously good. There's a lot of weapons out there that you just thought were amazing at first because you keep one-shotting people by not by the game mechanics, but by a bug.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, we've all experienced these kind of gameplay problems. I mean, me personally, I actually had a really lucky beta. I had hardly any issues whatsoever. I had a few crashes here and there, but that's about as far as it went. I do feel really sorry for people that had a bad experience, because I think, you know, it doesn't show you the full picture, and it's just bad luck. It is really important, guys, to remember that this was a 4-month-old setup, okay? It was a 4-month-old build, so it doesn't represent the quality of the game that you're going to get. It wasn't fully optimized either. So going into the actual full release, you'll find you have a totally different experience. And like Level says, when it comes to the weapons, we have only seen like a tiny snapshot of how this stuff is going to play out. There's tons more attachments, optics, all sorts of other things coming in there that will have a big role to play, all the other gadgets. So when it comes to these kind of balances and bugs with the weapons, it's still a work in progress on the beta side, and they are already way further forward with the game build than what we have seen here. So on the full release, it'll be a totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah. And I think overall, both of us, we were talking a little bit before this show, that we both had overall really positive experience with the beta. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I played it every single day since it came out, and now that it's not out anymore, I'm sort of like wanting to jump back in and play a few rounds on Siege of Shanghai. So overall, I had a great experience. Luton, you as well?
Yeah, I did have a really positive experience. I think a lot of any small negativity things that I did have, I do put down to the fact that it's still a work in progress. We'll have to see how it is when it comes out. But also, guys, they have said that they're going to try and do more frequent patches going into Battlefield 4. That's a really positive thing, but it remains to be seen just how frequent those are and how extensive they are. You know, if there is a game-breaking glitch, do they get onto that immediately? Do they solve that within a week, or do we have to wait? So we'll see how it goes. But overall, yes, really positive experience for me. I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. It was such intense action, but even when we lost games, I didn't feel frustrated. I think that's a really important thing, because that's always how it was with me for Battlefield. Even when we would lose, I still felt kind of positive, like, okay, we went down, but we still had a really good game. Nearly all the games I played on Shanghai were like that. I had such a good game experience, it didn't really matter if you won or lost, and I think that says volumes about the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'd love to know what you guys think about the beta, what your experiences were, what you're hoping might change, what you really liked that was changed from Battlefield 3. We'd love to hear about that in the comments section. So that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of On the Level. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. This is Luton and Level Cap, signing off.